This is a recording for the CUPHAT project, Coastal Uplands, Heritage and Tourism. My name is Daniel Carey.
And my name is Chris McCann.
Today is the 3rd of May 2023 and I have with me here Bridget Buckley. Thanks, Bridget. Can you confirm for the recorder that you're happy to take part in this project?
I am, yes.
Thanks a million. And could you spell your name for the recorder, please?
Bridget Buckley.
Thanks a million. We might start with a little bit about your early memories, because I know you haven't lived in this particular spot your whole life,
yes.
But I
have lived here, I mean.
All your life.
Yeah. I was born and reared here. Yes, and both my parents were both Rathmore people. Yeah, so it was generations of us reared in the parish of Rathmore. Yeah, no, I was born and reared here. Yeah.
And where was home when you were growing up?
Here, in Killeen-Killaan.
Killeen-Killaan.
Killeen-Killaan, that's Killaan. Yeah. Yeah, this is where we are. Yeah. So that's where I was born and reared here.
And what are your early memories?
Well, my early memories are, it was, as I said, I always look back on the good days, but like we were small. That my parents were small farmers, and we were like just we didn't have a lot of places to go or do anything like that, but we were very happy here in just a simple way of life. Yeah, and there was no such thing as toys like what there is today. We had what was called and pronounced as a bobby house. And it was where it was a little area, lots of kids around in the area had this, what was called this, and it was where you brought the old teapots and things from the house out, and you played all day keeping house, and that's the way we played. That was our toys, and we got toys from Santi, and we didn't have toys the whole year round, just at Christmas time and that, or maybe if we're lucky for our birthday someone would send us something, but that was the toy end of it, and we had a very simple, very happy life. Okay. Yeah.
What about school?
Well, we walked to school, and I just said such a difference besides now. When I started school in the early 60s, and at that particular time there was only 2 cars left Killaan to go to Rathmore School. And tell the truth, of both men, Bobby Rackard and Nicky Carr, they never left any of us on the road. They would pile in. All the children in the day, when the Passion Road stopped, we all piled in. I even remember getting into the boot car to get to school. But other than that, we walked to school, and when we got old enough then, we got bicycles. And they were always in the best of condition either. Yeah. We used to do what was the thing was called ride and tie, if I'm sure no one knows about now. But if you only had one bicycle, you rode the bicycle so far and left it in the ditch and walked on, and your brother or sister or whoever had come to the bicycle, ride it and pass you out and go so far more and leave it in the ditch and that's the way we got to school sometimes. Okay. Yeah, that was the way. Like if you only had the one bicycle, that's what you did. You were riding time. Yeah.
What was school itself like?
School now where I went was a 3-room school at that particular time, and there was no central heating. There was just a fire up at the back of the teacher and the rest of us then. But we started school at 9:30 after walking. We had 3 miles to walk, and there was three as I said, a 3-teacher school. Boys and girls were mixed at that particular time. But in my parents' time at school, it was a two-room school. All the boys were in one, and all the girls were in the other. It wasn't, the boys and girls weren't mixed at that when they were going to school. But no, we were mixed, and sure, that was good days. We'd be coming home from school and looking for sour sallies in the ditch to eat, and maybe getting the turnip out of the field and breaking on the road, and you think we were never going to get them to eat again. But that was things like that, eating haws and all that. But that's we great company coming and going from school if we had to walk the full journey or ride the full journey. That's the way. Yeah.
Were your parents both local to the area?
Yeah, there was 9. I'm the 9th generation of the family on my mother's side, and I'm not held to go. I don't know how many generations on my father's family. I think we are 9 generations as well, reared here in the parish of Rathmore. Yeah. So yeah, they were, like, my father lived up at the foot of Blackstairs mountain, and my mother was reared in just down in the village in Rathmore. So we're around for a long time. Yeah.
Tell me about the farm at home.
Here where we were living now, there wasn't. We were very self-sufficient here. Like, it was only a small farm, but they produced everything. Everything nearly that was used on the table was produced. Like, Mammy had to have the eggs and the butter and the cream and the milk from the yard, and then they grew all their own vegetables and potatoes, all the vegetables, and they were stored in pits and had for the full year round. And we had our own little fruit trees to make the jam, strawberries, raspberries. All the fruit trees was grown here, and they were all made into jam and whatever. And Daddy used to kill our own animals, and mostly the pig. Like, we had mostly bacon, maybe sometimes lamb, but and he used to fill their own puddings. And I remember the neighbours, up to when we were kids, we used to love when they filling the puddings, because the excitement was to see Father blow the bottom out of the bottle, a whiskey bottle or whatever, to make a funnel. There was no such thing as going in and buying a plastic funnel in the shop then days. You made your own. He used to blow the bottom of a bottle, and the neighbouring women, a few of the neighbouring women would come in and be given a hand with the filling of the puddings, and they were boiled and preserved, and we had them for the whole year round as well. And Daddy and they used to grow wheat and barley, and the wheat was taken to the mill and ground to make the brown bread, and the barley was ground to feed the animals in the yard. So everything fed itself, like this was in the yard. Everything was used like that. There was very little bought. As my mother used to say, she used to go to town on the bus or on the bike, and she didn't go for the tea and sugar because she didn't. She needed very little else.
Yes.
It was all home produced.
What was kind of social life and community life like?
Well, social life was like the biggest thing I remember about the social life was they brought out this thing called the tops of the parish, and where all the local, and the funny part about it was to see the people that you wouldn't expect on the stage. You know, it was great. We used to walk to the village hall, or to the hall in Rathmore, the JK hall in Rathmore, and the tops was almost concert type of thing. And that was running every I think Friday night and Sunday night for maybe 6 or 8 weeks, like every going on, like with the tops and that type of thing.
Was that after Lent? Was that around Lent time?
I can't really say when it was. Yeah. I wouldn't imagine it was Lent time, because like years ago Lent was very strict. Like you couldn't even get married in Lent at one time. And you couldn't have meat, and you spent a lot of time going over and back to the church. I remember going over and back to the prayers and things in church. I don't know. I'm not really able to tell you what time of the year the tops was on, but it was great fun. Yeah, and I remember that time there was a travelling show came to Killaan. It set up in the tent in Killaan, and it was called the Mogadors, and they put on shows every Sunday night. Sure, it used to be great to get up to the Mogadors, because, as I said, we didn't have a car. We had no great way until we got old enough to ride bicycles. We had no great way of going anywhere except walking, so that was it. Yeah.
What kind of services or facilities were there in the area?
Well, I'm talking about Killaan village alone. There's a massive change in Killaan village alone. When I was growing up here, we had a post office and grocery. We had a guard of barracks with 2 or 3 guards and a sergeant in it. We had Rackers, and there was then a pub, grocery, hardware, and we even had a forge in Killaan village. We had a doctor's and a clinic. We had a school. Now it was a Protestant school. We had a school in Killaan. Like, it was all there. But I remember the time when there was only 2 phones in Killaan, and if you had someone in hospital or if you had some urgent message, all anyone could do was ring either Records or the Garda Barracks, and they'd be good enough to come and give you the message. So, and there was a poor lady up at the other side of the church in Killaan. She used to do a telegram, or come through the post office. About the name has missed me now. Telegraph. And she had to ride 3 times a day, every day, to the post office to check was there a telegram for anybody. and then she'd have could drive to the top of the mountain with it, and all she was getting, I think, was about 1 and 6pence for bringing the telegram. But that was the only way they had a communication. And the first television around was in a house up at near the end of the lane here. And God bless that woman. All the neighbours, everybody was in the house looking at this television. There was such a thing that you had television, like it was massive,
It must have been a huge novelty for
yes,
when it
absolutely, yeah. Now we didn't get television here until the 70s, but like that family had a television way before that, and she would get the woman get from around the house what people was in it on television. Yeah, but it was a lovely neighbourhood.
What was life like? Say pre-television, what did you do in the evenings in the era before TV?
Like here now, like we were listening to Mammy and Daddy talk about the stories of their childhood, and as I said, summer evenings you're out playing in your baby house, and the winter evenings was either telling stories at the fire or listening to them telling us like of what happened in their day and all that type of thing. That's what went on here at that time, Yeah, there was so.
Were there kind of key events in the past that people talked about, or what were the sort of major moments that were in kind of in memory or in kind of discussion locally?
Well, no, I don't remember this because I was only quite young. The opening at the John Kelly Memorial Hall in Rathmure, that was a big event, but I don't remember that because I was in a pram, so I don't remember that one. But like the pattern was a big thing in the parish, and things like that. Mostly religious things, really. Was kind of a religious thing. There was a social thing as well, that type of thing. Yeah. Well, like people came in out to the house, they visited and visited each other and all that type of thing. There was more.
Were you a visiting house or an open house or how?
Oh yeah, even to this day, like the no one knocks coming in, they just come in. Yeah, no, that's like, but no, we don't have as much people calling now as we did. The people that did call are gone, and things are different, all right. But no, it was nearly always night. There was always someone in nearly every night here. Yeah.
What are the other kind of big changes you've seen locally, or?
Yeah, the neighbour, like as I said, we were here in a small little farm, and all the neighbours around were in the same situation, and they were very neighbourly people. If you were doing something out in the field, which was nearly always, everything was done by hand. Snagging turnips, tinning turnips, making hay, it was all. And if the neighbours saw you in the field working, they'd come on and give you a hand, and then vice versa, you went to their place when it was their turn and you helped out there. There was never any money exchanged or anything. Everyone just helped out each other. That was the way it was.
And you knew you'd get it back when it was your turn.
Yeah. Everyone helped. I remember even up to quite lately, like the people that lived across the road now, they're gone now, but we always sowed the potatoes with them, and they always came in and sowed them with us, and we just helped out each other. And like the one car when we were lucky enough to get a car, one car left the lane to go to school or to mass. Like, I used to drive a van, and people used to say I was like one dolly wagon pulling up outside the church. All the people was hopping out the back. But that was the way it was. People carried each other and looked after each other a lot more than now. That's a big change. That is why, like, you don't have the same unity that way. Yeah. Sorry about that. I meant to turn that off. Sorry. Is it alright?
Yeah.
No, sorry. Is it turned off?
So we can.
Sorry about that now.
No.
I'm going to turn it off now.
No problem.
I meant to do it. Oh.
Do you want to pop up to Sean and see?
I'll have to take this.
Yeah,
right,
Chris,
Sean.
you can.
So it's interesting you mentioned about the helping on the farms and etc. How big were the farms in those days?
Well, ours was about 60 acres here, like. Mm-hmm. But I don't remember my mother saying that a 10 cow farm where they had 10 cows in her day was a mighty big farm. 10 cows now, so it was. But there were about 50, 60 acres in the farms around here at that stage. Yeah, like they're all gone into one or two.
And then did they? How obviously they're probably conglomerated now. How did they merge? Did people leave? Were they
Mostly people died out, you see, because in some farms, like we said, or for instance, over the road here, there was just a brother and sister. And when they passed on, then the farm was sold, and the one person then maybe there was bought the farm, then maybe the adjoining farm was something the same, similar, and they bought that, and that's how the farms got to the bigger state. Yeah, it wasn't all little small. 100 acres would have been a mighty farmer a few years ago. Like even in my memory, like it would have been a big farmer, 100 acres. Yeah.
And has there been maybe a change in practices, farming practices?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, like we say here and in so many more around us, not just like everything was done by. I remember everything being done here with a horse. Yeah, like that there was no like I remember the tractors coming in. Actually, my uncle bought the first ever Ferguson tractor, a tiny little thing now, which was great to get that at that stage. Like but no, everything was done here with the pony here, and all the work was done with her. Yeah,
You mentioned the townland earlier, and that there's 4 townlands kind of adjoining in this area.
In this lane here now, the lane is less than 2 miles, and first of all, because of the tuck mill down at the bridge, the top part of this lane is now Goran. It's the townland of Goran. That time, that part of the lane was called the tuck mill lane, and then from the bridge up along here is Killeen. Across the road you had Glenglass. Up further you have Milltown. And then back up again, you have Glenglass again. It's all in just one little small lane. But that bridge is down there that you came over today, that was just, way back, it was just a little wooden footbridge. People had to walk, and the horse and cars and all had to go through the river. But my grandfather had bought farmland across the road here from us, and himself and his son was coming down one day to do the work in it. And there was a flood in the river, and my uncle got out of the car. But my grandfather was like my own father. He was fearless. He'd face anything. He went into a flood and was washed down the river. And he was nearly drowned. And after that, then, they put that little steel bridge that you came in over there today. They put that in it then. So, like, that bridge down there, I suppose, since the maybe very late 30s, early 40s. That little bridge down there, now Killeen Bridge is called. Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit more about that mill you mentioned?
Yeah, you see, I as I said, I'm not sure about what. I think it was flax, and flax I think was turned into material. I think that's what that was. That was that bridge down there. That's what, or the mill down there. That's what that was used for. Yeah.
Obviously, we're very close to Killeen here, and the well down there, and the graveyard down there. You mentioned to us on a previous occasion that the well used to be on. Yeah, the well is actually still down here. Still there, and the ruins of the church was there up to quite recently. But the palm tree, there's a palm tree growing at the back of where the church, way back, there was always a palm tree near a church. And actually, I'm not saying it's the same palm tree, but probably is still, but there's a palm tree growing down there still, and the graveyard was here. Yes, that was here, and in troubled
in the
farm in here, right just under the house here, and in troubled times, as my parents always referred to as troubled times, it was moved to Killeen, and there was a wooden structured church built in Killeen, just down at the bottom of the graveyard in Killeen now. There was a wooden structured church, and then it was moved to Rathjord, like the Catholic church is now in Rathjord, but it was here first. And
there was a pattern for St Anne.
There's a pattern for St Anne every the 26th of July as the pattern. We still have our pattern here in Killeen, and a procession and all down to the well. That's still going on here up here in Killeen. Yeah.
Was there any particular practices that went on at that pattern, or?
Yeah, well, it was lovely. That was one other highlight we had as kids. Doing like the mass was said, or the rosary was said, or whatever, and then the procession to the well, and then they'd have a field day and there'd be stands. All ladies used to come out from town with their stand to sell the sweet things and balloons and all that type of stuff. So we'd think the pattern would never come. No, that was went on up there, like, and it's still, well, the field day or the stands are not there now, but then we still have our pattern.
And how far would people come to go to that.
Oh yeah, like even as far as Corkle the next adjoining parish, you see people would have been buried in Killaan from all over, and then their ancestors would come back even still to the pattern in Killaan. Yeah. In walking there, when people were walking to the pattern, the lane here was a short way out for people from the Goran area. All day long there'd be people going up and down the lane to Killaan, to the pattern. Yeah.
There's also obviously a very strong connection to the 1798 history here.
Yes, Sir John Kelly, the wife in Killaan, he was born and reared in Killaan, and sure, in where records is now, that was where he was born and reared. So yeah.
What knowledge of that would have been passed down to you?
I don't really know a lot about that, honey. I was told, like our historian here in Killaan was said, as she followed it, and she was saying that we are direct descendants. My mother, Kellys, were direct descendants of John Kelly from Killaan, like the family. Yeah, but I don't know anything more about that than that, you know. Yeah, his head is meant to be buried in Killaan. Just tombstone, a big monument up there for him.
Yeah, there's the grave and the memorial down there.
Yes, yeah.
And what about, if I'm not mistaken, there was a forge as well.
Yeah.
That made pikes.
Yeah, the forge was up here at the end of the, just as you go out the end of our lane here, there was a little forge. It was, in my time, it was called Stedman's Forge, but I don't know what. They made the pikes for the 98. I learned that when I was going to schools, but they made the pikes for the 98 Rising, and the graveyard gates that's in Killaan. And if you notice it, there's like pikes all on the top of the grave, so it must be the same. It must be the same gates there still. Yeah, so no doubt they were made here in the lane. Yeah.
What's it like to live here today, Bridget? We talked a little bit about the change.
Well, like, I mean, I was born and reared here, so like it's home for me, and I'm quite happy here. But like I'd say, like some people would find it very remote here now compared to, you know, it would be a very quiet place. I'd say, like, some people would find it remote, but I'm very happy here.
And how would you describe the community in the area?
Yeah, like, and everybody is very good in the area. They are now, really and truly. Yeah, they are. I wouldn't like to be anywhere else, but then I don't know anything else.
We talked a little bit maybe about the kind of facilities or services that were in the area when you were growing up. What about now?
No, we have nothing like that now. We have nothing. Our doctor is gone, and our post office, the Garda barracks is gone. All that was up there in just a small little village, the whole thing is gone. We don't even have a grocery shop in Killaan anymore. You know, it's all gone. Yeah, like there was, as I said, there was everything in it at one stage, and we have the chipper now is the only thing that's any kind of business up there now. Yeah.
In terms of kind of I suppose activities in the sort of in the kind of wider area, what kind of things have you been involved in, or are you involved in
No, I was never one to get involved in anything with the hall. I would support anything I was able to do, but I never got involved in anything because, like, I looked after my parents while they were both ill, and then my children came along and my place was at home with them. That's why I felt my place was at home with my kids. So I never got into any kind of committees. I would have gone and helped in house, like where there was wakes and funerals going on, something like that, but I never got involved in any kind of committees or anything like that. I was happy to be at home, looking after my family.
I know you were you mentioned the butter making that your mother was involved in, and that's something that you learned from her, I guess.
Can
you
like,
tell me a little bit about that?
Mammy started making the butter here in 1954 when she got married, and like we was just sell it locally and that. And to be quite honest, them days I hate doing it, but then when it was come to my turn, I started doing it on a bigger scale altogether, and I did up to 2015. I had to retire then through Sean getting ill, and I loved it, and I made great friends that I have through the button making, sold in the local shops and Farfield as well.
Just explain what was involved in that process. How do you make it happen?
Yeah, how do you make it happen? Well, first of all, of course, you have to milk the cows, and then you have what's called a separator. It's a machine where you put the raw milk into it, and the cream comes out in one pipe and the waste milk comes out in another, and then you preserve that in a bucket for a week, and then you churn it in what's called a churn, and you drain off what the first would be buttermilk. You can make your bread with that. That was always done, and then you wash it until it's clear, and you have to squeeze all the water out of it then and salt it. Put quite a lot of salt into it. That was the thing about the farmer, the country butter, was the salt. Was people was really anxious for it, and you make it weigh up in pound rolls and sell it. Yeah, that was it. Was a lot of work attached to it.
How long would that whole process take?
Well, you see, if you were only doing this one churn, but I used to be doing it all day long. Well, one churn would take. It was an hour in the hand churn. It was an hour to even turn it from cream to butter. You'd be talking about 3 or 4 hours to do it, like. Yeah, but it was over the span of a week because you had to keep the cream, let it mature for a week before you could churn it. Yeah.
Where did you sell it?
Well, I went all over. I was going everywhere. I was even going to England before I was finished. Like, but like my mother used to sell it. She used to go to town with it and bring home. Like, that's the way they managed in the small farms years ago too. In the summertime, they had the butter. To bring the butter to town, sell it, bring home whatever groceries that they needed, which was very much because they had, and in the winter time you had to have the eggs. My mother learned us I used to have eggs for the winter time, and it was sold in the shops in town or maybe the local shops around, because it was quite a few grocery shops that time around that would buy butter off you. Yeah, but
and when did you start doing it on?
I started doing it, I suppose. I don't know. I left school in about 78 or 9 I started doing it. Yeah, and like when Mammy got to the stage where she was no longer doing it, I started, and I got it going, like, you know. Yeah.
You said you made great friends out of.
I did. I had people that keeps in contact with me still. Yes, all over. Yeah. I like when Mammy would have started, and she would have had about 12 or 14 pounds of butter. And then I said, I'm going to have to make a go of this or forget about it. So I left here one day with the van and £600 of butter in the van. And I went all over County Wexford and Wicklow and everywhere else. I came home with £20. Yeah, so like, and then they came to me then. Anyone that wanted it then came to me, like, and I used to go, that's the way I started.
Where did you set up, or where did you operate out of?
Yeah, there was a little. We had a little dairy out here at the back. It wasn't as big as this kitchen in the start, and then when I got going with it, my husband built a dairy down there and pipelined the milk into the dairy for me. Like, you know, we got because we used to have to hand milk the cows at one stage. Yeah, it was sit under with a stool and hope for the best.
You mentioned a little bit earlier about the sort of the visiting houses, and you'd sort of sit around. The entertainment was telling stories.
Yeah.
When obviously, and then the television came in. What was it like? Perhaps after the television came in, was there still a sort of a tradition of that?
Oh yeah. If somebody came in, the television was turned off. Oh, straight away, the minute someone come in the door, the television was turned off, and you went back to the older ways, like, and sat around and chatted and had the tea, and that was Dad used to put on the races here for Saturday, and he spent all day looking at the races. He was into horses in his young day, and he'd spend all day looking at the races on a Saturday. But after that, the television was put off if somebody came in.
And would there be any stories that maybe you would have heard in those times that are still being told to people today? Well,
I heard several stories, ghost stories and everything else. I wouldn't say it'd be fit for recording, maybe. But I remember there was a man used to call here. He was like a brother to my father. He used to call here every night or every so many nights a week or whatever. But he was telling this story about he was in another house. He was only a young lad. He was in another house, and were telling ghost stories, and he was going home on his bicycle to his own house, and he said the next thing, he said he started feeling something dragging in his coat, and the harder he pedalled on the bike, the more this drag was coming, and he said he was so convinced it was something weird was happening because his coat was getting caught in the back wheel of the bicycle. Well, that was what was happening. Yeah, things like that. Funny things like that. Yeah.
There's a lot of wraths around here. Obviously, would there be any of its folklore or stories or beliefs connected to those?
I remember there was quite a lot of Ras, and they were saying that it was very unlucky to touch a Ra. But one man over near the village in Rathnure now, because as I said, my mother was there just out in the village, but this man decided he wasn't going to listen to us, and he took his horse and his plough and went in and he ploughed the Ra. Coming on to evening time, he ploughed a few scrapes, what they call scrapes that time, in the field, in the Ra, and he was going to come back the next morning and finish it. And when he went back the next morning, the local lads had heard that he was after ploughing it, and they thought they'd give him a fright. And they went in that night and they turned back all the sods. And when he came in the morning and saw the sods all turned back, he went out at like a back of hell. Yeah, he didn't plough it anymore. But like they were saying, it's all lucky something happened to some of your family or something if you touch your rabbit. I don't know. So that they say that's how Rathnure got its name. There was such a lot of Ras in it. No, I don't know about that either. But that's what they said. Rathnure was the homeland of the Ras. Yeah.
There's probably actually a couple of stories about place names, and you can't always figure out exactly where the thing comes from.
Where it comes from, yeah.
I'm sure there's areas around here.
Yeah.
But
there was up on the lane here, up along, it was in the towns and the mill town, but there was so many families of O'Briens in it. It was called Brianstown, and it was just because there was 3 or 4 families of Brians living in the one little small area. It was called O'Brienstown. Yeah, and that's how that got this name. Yeah.
And how small would those place names get in terms of scale? So, like for example, would a field be called after someone? Would a bend in the road be called after someone?
Yeah, well, no, it's funny you should mention that, because on your way up to Rathnure now from up the back, there was a very dangerous turn, and my grandfather owned the land, and they used to call it the Johnny Kelly turn, because it was a very dangerous turn, and it's called a dangerous turn now, but that time it was called the Johnny Kelly turn. Yeah, because it was just was highlight the turn, I don't know, but that was what was called then days, because he owned the land there.
In terms of kind of, I suppose, areas of interest locally, are there what you might call heritage sites? Are there kind of heritage sites that are kind of particularly special for you or for friends or relatives?
Yeah, I used to go up now, and I bring the grandchildren up to a place called the Nine Stones up on the side of Mount Leinster. That was a very special place when our grandchildren, our own children even, when they were growing up. It was just some place to bring them, and they went free, and they saw the lighters, and yeah, it was a place that we went and up to the Nine Stones, right on the side of Mount Leinster. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the I suppose we're in the shadow of the Blackstairs here. Would you have been would you have sort of been up regularly, or what was your kind of relationship with the mountain?
We always meant to go for, it was the Frockin Sunday. It was called Frockin Sunday, and it was around the pattern in Killaan. But although we always meant to go, I never got there. But it was a thing about the mountain. You go to the mountain Frockin Sunday, or Mountain Sunday, some people called it. Yeah. So like that was something I suppose I never got around to doing it. Alright, but I used to love. I say because I kind of think that my father was reared so close to the mountain that I loved the mountain. I'd love to just go there and just sit there and look around me, and I love that. Yeah.
You mentioned you didn't make it up to Mountain Sunday or to Frockin Sunday, but would there be a tradition of people afterwards coming down the mountain and going to houses, having dances?
Yeah. There would have been, yeah. And I remember when one time for Mass you had to pass from 12 o'clock at night, and then poor people walk from the top of the mountain down, and sure they would faint in the church because they'd be such bad, they'd be really worn out. and walk back up again then. Yeah, it was terrible. Yeah, but that was the way it was. Yeah, that was the way it was then.
Do you would you've kind of spent much time sort of walking in the mountains or in the sort of upland areas generally?
Yeah. When we were youngsters, like we would have had, like, but not now.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. When we were youngsters, there used to be header. We used to love to get the header on the mountain. Yeah, all right. But I actually have a niece living up on the mountain now. But I know I love going up there, particularly Mount Leinster. It's lovely upland there. Yeah, I love that place.
What's kind of particularly special for you about Mount Leinster?
It's just, I suppose, I'm attracted to the mountain, and that's it, and there's great views and everything from Mount Leinster. I walked up to the television mast once. Yeah, it's the only thing in life I said I'd never do again. Yeah, it's a long way up. It's a long way up.
That kind of physical landscape. What are kind of the most interesting features of the kind of the sort of natural landscape around the area for you?
Yeah, you see, if you're up there, you can actually see down as far as Rosslare Harbour. You have a massive view from up that area, like you can see, and it's particularly nice at night. See all the lights and trying to pick out what town is what or what village is what, trying to sort them all out in your minds. Yeah, I think that's lovely.
Actually, to go back a little bit, we're talking about the facilities and things that were available to people in this area. What about public transport? Would it have been?
There was more transport. Yeah. There was more public transport that time. A bus used to travel from New Ross to Enniscorthy. I think it was twice a day, 3 days a week. Now that's where we got to town, and we do our Christmas shopping, and that. We went to town on the bus. Just travel through Killarn to Enniscorthy in the morning, out at lunchtime, back in then at 3. Yeah, that's where I went. Back out at 3 again, and back out at night then at 10 o'clock I think at night. Came out or 9 o'clock at night. I came out. Yeah, there was more public transport than, of course, when the cars came in. There wasn't much. But I think it's coming back. Yeah. So you had to go to Killarn village to get it.
If you had to show one aspect of the area to a friend who was visiting, where would you have brought people, or what would you have kind of recommended to people that they should see if they were around?
Well, quite a lot of people now would be asking about St. Anne's Well here because it's in Killarn, and like you got in the John Kelly Memorial Stone then, and the Blessed Well, and like that was the kind of, I suppose, the most important thing about Killarn.
Yes,
if your visitors called to see that, and they'd be asking about it. Yeah.
And in terms of kind of plants and animals in the area, do you know much about those, or what kind of things would you have seen on kind of walks up the
this area at one time was mostly a sheep farm. This area, like all around here, like being with the mountain, was mostly all sheep, but now of course it's changed. It's Lava's dairy now, but it was nearly all a sheep country at one time. Yeah.
Would the farms have, they would have been more would they have been more self-sufficient? Would they have had a variety, maybe of some sheep up here?
Everything. Everybody had a little bit of everything. Like we're saying, this small farm here, we had sheep, pigs, horses, cattle, and then you grew all your own food as well. That was the way it was. It was all just a small bit of everything. And the fields were all very small then as well. There weren't the big massive fields that there is today. They're just small little fields. Yeah.
What do you think changed that from that kind of diverse?
Well, I suppose the help died out to start off with, because there was no one's house, but there was 3 or 4, maybe 5 people living in it. There was uncles and aunts or grannies or granddads or whatever. There was a lot. The houses were a lot. There was a lot more in the houses. The help died out. The machinery got bigger and better, and that's, I think, what it's just like farming now is just a one-man show, where there was a load of people involved a few years ago. because everything was done, as I said before, everything was done by hand. And yeah.
And would the local population have been perhaps more dense in those because of that?
Yeah, there would have been, I suppose. Yeah, there would have been. I suppose you didn't realise it because, there probably would have been a lot more people around. And
it's sort of 4 or 5 to a house in every house.
Yeah. And you see, anyone that would have been over 65 or that, they wouldn't have been hardly seen because there was no way of going anywhere. So they weren't able to ride a bicycle or walk. They stayed at home, and that was the way it was. Yeah.
Was it common for people to emigrate from this area?
Absolutely, unfortunately, yeah. No, I wouldn't say there was a house around, but we had somebody in mostly England. A lot of people went to England. Although a lot of my mother's family went to Australia, but that was a big thing then days because it was mostly England that went to. Yeah. Or up to Dublin to work. You were very posh if you went to Dublin to work.
Were you ever kind of tempted to go yourself, or? No,
because I tell you about this. I didn't get a chance to finish my education because when I was only 14, my father got sick, very sick, and I was taken out of school, and then I started back in April. For to start off again, and he got bad again, so I had to stay at home and look after. Mommy was looking after him, and I was looking after the farm, and that was it. So I never left here.
were you in secondary school at that stage?
I was only at the start in secondary school.
Where was that?
I was only in the vocational school because I wanted to do either childcare or catering. So I stayed at home and did both to get nothing for it. No, that was what I was big into domestic thing, and childcare. I would have loved that, but I didn't get needs to be. I was needed at home, and that was it. There was no more about it. Yeah.
Did you like school?
I did love secondary school. I got on in Rathmore. I didn't say I didn't like it, or I didn't say I did like it. Rathmore like national school. But when I went to the vocational school, I was very happy there, and it was all the domestic end of it. I was at that time it was called domestic science, and I loved that. All right.
That was in Buckley?
No, in Enniscorthy.
Oh, in Enniscorthy.
It's where the library is in Enniscorthy now.
Okay.
That's where I went. Yeah, there's a new vocational college now, but I went to where the library is now. Yeah. Okay. That's where I went there. Yeah. So I did my intern leaving the 1 year. I started in September and I finished in April. Yeah, no, it's the way things were done them times. Yeah, needs be.
Did you have electricity from?
The electricity was put into this house here when I was only quite young.
Okay.
Yeah, but then at that time you only had one socket in the house. I remember this house with only one socket in the kitchen, and that was all you had. And when you had the lights all over the place, but you only had one socket. Very scarce, yeah.
What would have been competing for space for that socket? What would
the radio was number one. That was the most important thing, because the kettle was always boiled on the range, and there was no such thing as a Hoover or anything else. There was not as many plugs needed as there is today. It was only the radio. That's why there was ever the one socket. I was talking to a lady the other day, and they had electricity in, and the father only allowed to get a light in the kitchen. She wouldn't have even had lights all over the house. So that was the way it was like. Yeah.
I'm guessing for your parents' generation, it would have been an enormous change.
Absolutely, yeah. The wall light was actually I have one of the wall lights here still. The wall light was a big thing compared to what they had before that. It was great to get electricity. And when the water came, that was absolutely all the water was drawn from the St. Anne's well that we're talking about. All the water was taken from that for everything here, even for the feeding of the animals in the yard and everything. The water was all brought from the well. And then I don't know what year it was that the water scheme came to Rathmore. I know I was old enough to dig the channel coming in along to put it in. I was left school at the time. So I suppose it was in the early 70s we got the water and tap. That was absolutely.
I can imagine, because you'd have been
no
up and down to the well.
Up and down to the well. Sometimes there were 2 buckets, and if the bucket was empty and you wanted a cup of tea, you had to go to the well first for the water for the tea. that was another big change around, like. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I remember that well. Yeah, and on Sundays we spent our Sundays. All the neighbours' children be in, because we were playing Babby House, and in the summer Sundays, our job was to fill the barrels outside the door with the water for my mother to wash on a Monday. We'd have to bring it up in an old pram, cans of water in a pram, fill them up and bring them up. We got great fun out of it because we split all ours. Yeah, so like the water was the big was I'd say it was as important or maybe more so than the light. Really, yeah. Yeah. So.
You mentioned also, the entertainments in terms of the, the tops and, the travelling.
Travelling watcher, yeah.
What about music and dancing and that sort of thing? What sort of entertainment would you have in that respect?
Yeah, well, you see, they used to give socials in the hall too. Every townsland, I think it was to raise funds for, maybe for the church, that a few townlands that go together and to put on a social in the hall, But I wouldn't have been up to the dancing age at that stage. The ladies at the townland would give the tea and all, and they'd have a dance in the hall. But that was about the only thing. And I know my parents used to go play whist in the winter time when we were old enough. Like they used to play whist up in the Killan Hall in Killan, yeah. But that was about the entertainment. Like there wasn't a lot about entertainment, really and truly. No. Oh.
Did you ever, yourself, when you were a bit older, say go to maybe New Ross to attend a dance or to attend a...
Well, we nearly always went to Cain.
Right.
And it was a £0.50 to get in at that time. Yeah, we went down to Cain. It's just the next parish. Like used to go there every Friday night. Every Friday night there was dances held in Cain, and we enjoyed that all right, yeah. When we got old enough to do that, yeah. But you'd be like to be piled into the car. There might be maybe 10 8 or 10 people in the one car. That was the way. Cain was the most popular one for us. Yeah.
In terms of food, how have things changed there? Are there things you would have got locally or you would have eaten that that you don't?
No, well, the food was, as I said, the food was all made at home here. Like like Mammy made the bread and the butter and all that here at home, and like biscuits were certainly a treat. Cornbread and tarts were the sweet things you got. Like there was always plenty of tart or cornbread, but as far as biscuits or this like that type of thing, there was nothing like that. Only if there was visitors coming, you got it then all right. But it was nearly all homemade. I suppose healthier, really.
And from what you were saying, it sounds like maybe your mother and other people who would have been producing stuff locally would have nearly used kind of barter when you went into that you'd have had something to offer in exchange for.
Oh, absolutely, yes, people, yeah. Like we had an aunt that lived in the town, and when she came out here, like she got the turnips and a few potatoes, a few logs, and Mammy, up to the time Mammy got to the stage where she wasn't able to make tarts anymore, Mammy would make about 16 or 17 tarts here of a Saturday. The whole place would lit with tarts. So when they come in then, they got the tart with the tea and they got a tart to bring home. That was the way it was done. They just got a tart to bring off it.
That's a lot of tart in one room, is it?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the way it was done. Yeah. Another thing we would have had was scones, and like we wouldn't have had a savoury supper. We would have had maybe rice or custard or something like that at supper time, or maybe boiled eggs at supper time. But and like our breakfast in the morning was either boiled eggs or a fried egg on. Just to fry eggs on bread. Put fried bread, and that was our winter breakfast when you walked 3 miles to school in the rain. That was our breakfast for them. Yeah. So that was the way. Foods were definitely different. No such thing as cheese or anything that way at all.
Things were much more locally produced.
Yeah,
I guess.
Plain food.
Outside.
Yeah. Eggs and all that. They were all taken from the yard. You see. Yeah.
Well, actually, on that, and would that have differed? Would there be some regions that would maybe have, if there was more dairy farming, they maybe would have more dairy around the house, but others would, what about closer to the sea, for example, would there be more?
Sorry.
So in terms of the food, sorry.
Yeah.
So if they were maybe closer to the sea, would that change? Or if
It would have been with the fish. It would have been. But then when you see, we had a man used to come around the months of the herons. A man used to come around every week from the town, from Enniscorthy town with the herons, and you'd buy the herons off of him, and then you'd have other people calling, and if you had spare chickens, you sold the chickens to them. Like, we used to call it the heron man and the fowl woman. That was the way it was. They'd buy chickens or maybe eggs sometimes if you had them to spare. They'd buy them off you here at the door. Like, no, the fish we got now was the herons. That was the way it was.
Would there have been anything specific you would have eaten around feast days, so for Easter or for Christmas?
Christmas was like, I suppose Christmas was always special. If you were a child, it's very special. Like, we would have had a Christmas pudding, and that times the Christmas pudding was boiled in a sweet can. Now the local shops will have loose sweets in a can, and every woman around in the locality would be looking to see will the shopkeeper a can, and make the Christmas pudding, and the Christmas pudding we put in the can and boiled, and I can still hear it hopping on the cooker inside, but the smell was gorgeous. We always had Christmas was always very special, very simple but very special. Like there was no such thing, even in my early days, was no such thing as fairy lights for the Christmas tree. You had balloons and cat's ladders and things like that, but there was no such thing. And you didn't buy a Christmas tree, you go down and cut it down from the ditches outside. It was very simple, and it was lovely.
In terms of, I suppose this project is looking at tourism, and I'm wondering what kind of visitors would have come from outside the area when you were younger, or did people come from outside?
We had, like as I said, Daddy's brother immigrated to. He was in London, and he came here every year for his 2 weeks holidays. And Mammy's cousin came from Liverpool. They always came for their holidays every year. There was more stuff from England. Like people would come and stay in the houses, like their family homes, like where they would
have been people who had immigrated
come back home for their partner's visit. They would have had. We had a good bit of that, right? But I can't think of there wouldn't have been camper vans on that corner of the road like what there would be today. It was just they visited houses like that.
Would you have taken holidays when you were young?
Not when we were very young. No. I'd say no. I'd say the first holiday I was ever on was my honeymoon.
Where did you go for that?
We went touring around Ireland. We went touring around here and there. I ended up on Bray visiting Sean's sister up there. We ended up there. That's what we done.
How did you meet?
Sean and I. Like I said, going back to when Daddy was very sick, I had to leave school to stay here, and Sean was a contractor at that stage. He was doing farming contracting, and Daddy was still in the bed. It was springtime, and my mother heard of this man, this agricultural contractor, and she went down on a Sunday. I can blame her. She went down on a Sunday to see would he come and do the ploughing and the readying and all that. So Sean came in here on a Monday evening, and I was still in my uniform from school, and he started doing work here, and after about a year or so our friendship grew, and 7 years later we got married. That's how we met here in the yard.
Where was he from originally?
He was from Portnacully, the next parish. He was 4 miles down.
You wouldn't have known each other before.
Not
before
at all.
that.
No, but funny enough, the Buckley side of the family were very, very great friends of both my father and my mother. My father used to go hunting with his uncles, and my mother was pally with the family as well. So like they were, they knew the family like years before that. But that's how we met. So. Very good. Sure, I was only 15. He was only 19.
And in terms of you mentioned that honeymoon was probably your first holiday. Your first holiday. it's I guess it's not like you can't shut down the farm when
No,
to
no.
to
No,
kind of
even-
take off. But would people from around, like, did anyone kind of go away, or was that a thing at all?
It was
Really?
no. I mean, if you went around Ireland, you were doing well, absolutely doing well, and there was no such thing as stagger head nights because you were so busy collecting the money, however many money you could get for the pay for the wedding. There was no such thing as stagger head nights or nothing like that them days at all. No, there wasn't. No, it was very tight budget.
And when would kind of foreign holidays have come in, or when did people kind of start to go away?
I suppose in the well, no, we were married in 76. I suppose maybe mid-80s or that, like people, and maybe there was a few that went on foreign holidays before that. I don't know, but our local friends and all that, they didn't start going on foreign holidays until, I suppose, really our youngsters grew up. You know, the next generation more so. Mm.
And you mentioned obviously a lot of the people who would have been visiting were people maybe who were native to the parish,
they came
who
home.
were kind of just
see,
back.
They came home to the home house where
Yes,
they left.
yes.
If there was somebody there, but this was a kind of the home house for my father and mother's side because my mother's house was gone into ruin, and my father's family all came here as well. Yeah, like anyone that was going home on holidays came here. Yeah.
What would you have done when you had visitors over, or what was
Well, my uncle now that used to come, Daddy's brother, he used to borrow my other uncle across the road here, or across the way here, he used to borrow his car and take us maybe to the beach, or maybe take us even into town to shop, or he would have, because we wouldn't have had a car in them days, and he would have borrowed his brother's car and taken us places, like, you know, that was it.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, our outing of a Sunday evening when we were very young, it was up to St. Anne's Well in Killan, and a packet of Lincoln cream biscuits and a Big Brother lemonade, and sit in the graveyard and have it. That was a Sunday evening for us when we were very young. Yeah, and we were delighted with it. It was simple, very simple. Yeah.
And you mentioned the car ownership there. When did that change? When did it start becoming more common for people to own a car?
Yes, like there was, as I said, there was only 2 cars in Killan when I started school in the 60s, but then by the end of the 60s and that cars was gone very plentiful. Yeah, they were gone very. We got our first car here when I turned 17, because my father and my mother they were too old to get a licence, and they had to wait until I was 17, and I was self-taught to drive, get in and go. Like, my father knew no fear. He would never, you know, the car came in here on Saturday evening, and a Sunday morning I was going up to Killan to the village to get the flour for my mother. He says, "Where are you going on a bicycle in the car there?" Which I didn't know the front wheel from the steering wheel, but I had to get in and bring it. That was it.
And how did you find that? That's...
Oh, I think I must have went to Killan and back in the one gear. Yeah. No, there was no such thing as driving lessons or anything that way. You got a license and that was it. I don't know, like, you know. But then you see everybody, the cars were better, the roads were worse, and they were no longer going too hard. It's the good roads and the good cars now, and like the structure of a car was very strong that time compared to now. Yeah.
I guess it broadened, like, where you
to be
could
able to
go
go
as well.
to town and be able to go here, there, it was beautiful, it was great. It was great, yeah. Sure, when we started out going out together first, the only place we could go was to Enniscorthy on the tractor, to the pictures. That was our outing, in Enniscorthy on the tractor. That's the only way we had to go. So,
Is there any pictures or films that kind of stand out from
the
your
first
time?
picture I always remember is, I don't remember any since Ryan's daughter was the first picture I ever saw. I remember that well. Yeah. That was in the Astor Cinema in Enniscorthy. It's now gone. It's gone. It's gone a good number of years now. Yeah, but then there was the Ritz in New Ross. That's gone now too. But that was the first picture I ever saw, was Ryan's daughter. Yeah. So nobody means.
And would, in those days, would all of the towns have had those big
Oh
towns
yes.
had a theatre?
At one time they were called the Picture House, and the Picture House was what they were called. Yeah. a cinema. Then they went out, got a little bit posh and got a cinema. Yeah.
Did that also change that? Did you go further? Did that also change the sort of the kinds of things you would buy and consume and eat?
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. And like there was even a difference in as we called it, the picture house. There was even a difference if we went upstairs. Like, tell the truth, Sean, he always brought me upstairs. If you went, like, it was upstairs, and then there was called the flea pit. Downstairs was a cheaper ticket for downstairs than upstairs. Yeah. And all the goodies was bought. I was spoiled. Yeah.
The what's the best thing about living here, Bridget?
I suppose the fact that you know all your neighbours are, well, that's beginning to fade as well. You know, like one time you knew everyone in a 7-mile radius, or maybe 10-mile radius of your home. You knew everybody, and if there was anyone sick, sad or sore, you were there to help out, and vice versa, they were there to help you out. But unfortunately, that's changing as well. You know, there's nobody, you're afraid to intrude anymore. But like that time, people just got, if there was anyone sick in the parish, you went to see him and you went to do all you could for them, and that was it. Like, yeah.
How did word get around in those days?
The postman nearly, like, if there was a death in the locality, the postman it nearly was the one that would say, oh, such a person passed away, or maybe like some member of the family would come and tell you anyway. Yeah, it was a close. Like my mother, then she was called around to a lot to look after the people after they died in the home, because the wakes were in the home. My mother was a nurse, and she was called a lot. We'd know a lot. Maybe a person would be bad to die, and she'd be gone. Remember, he was gone. There was someone dying in the park. There was someone dying around the place. Yeah, that was the way it was. She was, yeah.
Was there kind of cures or that kind of thing associated with different?
There was a lot. There was a ringworm cure, and there was a cure for shingles, and there was a cure for jaundice. Different cures for different things.
And what kind of remedies were they? What were people
like? They were quite good, really. Yeah, there was a worm cure. That was a big one. Like, it was like to this day, our eldest boy Francis, the chapter, he got worm fever, and we got the homemade remedy for him, and he got okay. Yeah, like that was a big thing, like the worm cure. Yeah.
And were there kind of particular plants or what
yeah, I don't know the plant that they use, and or else it's hard to get the plant. No, it's actually grown here in this place, but and they were to know by the rub it between the palms of their hands, and they were to know by the froth how bad the person was. Yeah, you know, you have to have the belief too, of course, that it would. Yeah. But yeah, my uncle, Mammy's brother, he nearly died with worms. And he was given up by priests and doctors and everything. So that time the priest was called first. If I got sick, the priest was called before the doctor. But he was given up by priests and doctors and everything. And my mother got the worm cure for him, and he was saved. And he went grey, but he lived to be 80. So like, it was okay, you know. But yeah.
You mentioned the priests there, and I suppose they were kind of very important figures in the locality.
Absolutely, yeah. The priest, what the priest said went, and that was it. Regardless of whether you liked it or not, that was what happened. The priest was the most important, yeah. And they were called before the doctor to anyone that was sick. Yeah, they were called out. Yeah.
Would the priest have been doing? Would he have been kind of doing house calls and that kind of thing?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Well, you would have been like, I had him coming here. Well, we had him coming here for years to my father when he was no longer able to go to the church, and then to my mother when she was no longer able to go to the church. They came every month, and then they might be in the area and they'd drop in. And then when we had a mission, the friars that was giving out the mission, they'd come visit. They'd visit every house in the parish. They'd be here for a week or so, and during the day they'd visit all the houses of the parish.
Would you have had the stations? Was that a thing here?
No. We say like the mass in the house.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, we didn't have that here. No. But that's small. Well, I've already heard of that in Cork. I don't know whether it's in other counties or not. But I've heard about it in Cork, all right.
Okay,
yeah.
But it's not a tradition
it wasn't
in the area at all.
It wasn't a done thing. We had the friars come out every every year to bless the holy water and that, all right, from New Ross. But we never had the stations.
And would there have been kind of ceremonies at the well in St. Anne's?
Oh yes, there would have been.
Well?
Yeah, there would have been there would have been mass in the graveyard and then the processions at the well with the rosary. That's carried on even still, which is great. Like because it's after being revived up there now. Like a committee cleaned up the graveyard and that in Killarn. It was lovely now. Yeah.
Are there any other kind of traditions like that are still going or have been revived, or are there ones that have kind of died off?
Well, like we during Lent we used to have to go back every 2 nights or 2 days or 2 evenings a week to the stations in the church. That's gone, and things like that's gone all right. And I can remember when I was going on the bicycles and up near the Cross of Grange, it's a cross between here and Rathore. There was a wide space and there was always travellers in the area, and they'd have a campfire burning and you'd always nearly get the smell of rashers frying to be out getting their supper, God love them. And then those little wooden camp, not like the mobile homes they have today, like the wooden horse-drawn camps to be along the side of the road when we'd be going to mass on the bikes. Yeah, that'd be nice, yeah.
What would you like to change about the area, or is there...
Bring back the labouring list, people calling into one another. I would love to see that coming back, and people dropping in and helping one another out. That was a great thing. Like no money exchange because nobody had the money. There was no, like, it was lovely to see people just came in and gave you a hand and you done the same for them. And I would love to see that goodwill coming back.
Why do you think that has kind of been reduced, or what's
because people have gone too well off. That's everyone have everything. You see, one time you didn't have everything you needed. You let borrowed and lent, and even down to sugar or flour or whatever. You run in, can I have a cup of sugar, and next week it could be tea bags with you, or tea as it was them days. It wasn't tea bags them days. Like, people were dependent on each other that time. But that's gone now. You see, people are very well off now when they don't. It was
the initial contact maybe was driven by necessity. But
yes,
it meant
absolutely.
you got to no friend, no neighbours, and I guess it worked both ways.
It worked both ways. Yes. I even remember to the stage where the woman across the road used to buy the Sunday paper and she'd bring it in here when she was done reading it, and my mother would buy the Echo and she'd set out, or when she was, that was the way it was. Like, people looked after each other so well. That's sad that's gone. I think it is.
What kind of challenges does the area face, do you think? Or
loneliness, I'd say, like, and you know, I think loneliness is going to be a big one, and particularly if you're not lucky enough to have we're very lucky that way. If you're not lucky enough to have your own children around you, like if you grow old, and I'd say it's going to be very lonely, because people are afraid to intrude, and they're not involved with people anymore. Sure, how many times now you hear of someone being dead in the house for a couple of days before they're even noticed? That wouldn't have happened because you'd miss them from Massey, you'd miss them from the pub, you'd miss them from wherever.
Has COVID had an effect?
Absolutely,
as well?
Yeah. It was bad enough, but since COVID made it an awful lot worse. It made it. Yeah, it made it an awful lot worse. Saying no one seems to have time anymore. That was one thing about the COVID though. People had time to chat. If with the distance they had time to chat because they weren't running around like, yeah.
Were people, was there kind of more activity on the lane?
The lane,
that
absolutely,
period?
down to the river. If you're out there in a summer's day out in the yard, out the garden and that, people were going the lane the whole time, going out for a walk. It's a lovely old place to walk along, and youngsters were going down and playing in the river. That was our seaside when we were growing up, down to the river, and a crowd of kids down there playing. But that came back during the COVID, all right.
People got to know their 2K or their 5K very well.
Yes, they did, yeah. A lot of the village now came down and was going up and down the lane here during the COVID. It was lovely. And Ballyhighland Wood was the same, it was packed with people. Yeah, get out of the house. Yeah.
What about sort of younger people, particularly sort of in their sort of 30s, 40s, is that they sort of coming back to settle here if they've been away? Is there a kind of...
Yeah, well, now you see, at one stage here, like my sisters lived up there, and we were saying it's becoming a very old lane. We were all like, as it happened, we were the youngest nearly in the lane, you know, and we were saying it's becoming a very old lane. But now, thankfully, every house in the lane here now has a youngster living. Like my sister has her daughter living near her, and we're lucky enough to have two sons here in the lane with us now. Like, you know, well, please God, when John come home, like, yeah, it's because like they're settling back.
And what do you think's the cause for that?
Well, I suppose I don't really know. Like, I suppose I don't know why they come back. I suppose where you're born and reared, you like to be. I suppose, yeah. And that'll hit you when you get that bit older. I suppose, yeah. I don't know.
You've a son in Australia at the moment. You were
son
saying
in Australia. I was actually talking to him just before you came in. Yeah, he's hoping to come home next year. We have a wife and two little children out there, so it'll be great. Yeah.
How do you stay in touch?
I Skype. He's very he rings us about 4 times a week. He's very, very good. He rings us about 4 times a week, and then on a weekend he'd Skype us till I see the children. Yeah, but now there's a 3-hour difference, as you understand, and it's not as easy because Daddy Sean will be gone to bed before the youngsters will be up, so it's not as easy at this time of the year. In the winter time, it's easier. There's only an hour between us, as I call an hour between us. Like they'll be up before we go to bed. Yeah.
In terms of kind of the sort of local heritage of the area, cultural heritage or natural heritage, what are the kind of what are the sort of important places around here, do you think, for that?
Yeah, I don't really know. Like, I suppose the village of Killan itself, like, has a lot of heritage there. I would say you have records going back to John Kelly's time, and then you have, as I said before, the well and all that type of thing in Killan. But other than that, like, I don't really know of anything else really.
Those, I mean, yeah, it's a place that's kind of steeped in history.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is steeped in history. But yeah, it is. But other than that, no, I don't know of anything else. Yeah.
Was there anything that we didn't touch on, Bridget, that you wanted to discuss? Because I'm conscious that we covered a huge amount of ground there, but
neighbourhood, around in the 60s, yeah, sure, like that was mostly, we talked about that, but I think so, I think you're, yeah.
Or were there any other kind of big changes between your childhood and now that you wanted to?
We nearly after hitting and covering and everything, aren't we? Really? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I don't know now. I can't remember.
Perhaps a sort of maybe a big picture sort of question then to finish up. Again, a really broad. What does it mean to you to be from this area and still be in this area? And what does this area mean to you?
Sure, I suppose like everybody, it means the world to me, like, because I swear I was born and reared and all my family before me was the same, and I couldn't picture myself any place else. Like, I couldn't picture moving away to any place else. I'm too long here now, you know, and I have too much, you know, my family's all around me, and I couldn't see myself. I couldn't see myself living any place. Being that I never got the chance, or never did move out. I'd probably maybe look at it different if I did. But no, I've all my family here around me now, and I've only one sister and she's living up the road there, so like I wouldn't move from here for all I ever saw. No, it's a quiet place, and you always have help if you need it, and yeah, it's good.
That's a lovely note on which to finish, I think. Bridget, thanks a million. That's been brilliant. Thanks very much.